The betrayal. Welcome to Twisted Heartstrings. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments which city you're watching from. A dream built on love. My name is Emma Carter, and I used to believe in fairy tales. At 32 years old, I had built my wedding planning business from nothing into one of the most sought-after services in Seattle. Everlasting Moments wasn't just a company name. It was my promise to every couple who walked through my door. I would create their perfect day, the moment they would remember forever. I poured my heart into every wedding I planned. The tiny details mattered to me. The way the light hit the bride's dress during the first dance. The tears in a father's eyes as he walked his daughter down the aisle. The nervous laughter of grooms waiting at the altar. I lived for these moments because I believed in love. I truly did. My own love story seemed just as perfect. Daniel Ross had been my partner for 5 years. We met at a charity event where I was coordinating the setup, and he was presenting architectural designs for a new community center. He was charming, successful, and kind. Or so I thought. He had dark hair that fell perfectly across his forehead, green eyes that crinkled when he smiled, and a laugh that made everyone around him feel warm. Daniel supported my business dreams. When I wanted to expand and hire a partner, he encouraged me. When I worked late nights perfecting centerpiece designs, he brought me coffee and kissed my forehead. When I doubted myself, he told me I was brilliant. We talked about our future constantly, the house we would buy, the children we would have, the life we would build together. The business partnership. 6 months ago, I made what I thought was the smartest business decision of my life. I hired Sophie Chun as my business partner. Sophie was talented, organized, and full of creative ideas. She had worked for a competitor for 3 years and had an impressive portfolio. When she approached me about joining Everlasting Moments, I was thrilled. Sophie was beautiful in that effortless way some women are. Long black hair, delicate features, always dressed impeccably. She was 28, ambitious, and eager to learn. We split the responsibilities perfectly. I handled the creative design and client relationships, while Sophie managed the logistics and vendor contracts. Within weeks, our business doubled. We were booking weddings a year in advance. We hired 2 assistants and moved into a larger office space. Sophie became more than a business partner. She became my friend. We had lunch together, shared stories about our lives, and celebrated our successes with champagne after particularly beautiful weddings. Daniel and Sophie got along well too. Maybe too well, but I didn't see it then. I was blind. When Daniel suggested we all have dinner together, I thought it was wonderful that my partner and my fiancé were becoming friends. When Sophie started asking Daniel's advice about business matters, I thought she was being smart. When they texted each other about surprise plans for my birthday, I thought they were being thoughtful. I was a fool, planning my own wedding. 4 months ago, Daniel proposed. We were on a weekend trip to the San Juan Islands, watching the sunset from a cliff overlooking the ocean. He got down on one knee and pulled out a ring that took my breath away, a vintage sapphire surrounded by diamonds. "Emma," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you make every day feel like magic. Will you marry me?" I said yes. Of course I said yes. I cried happy tears and called my mother and posted pictures on social media like millions of women before me. I was going to marry the man I loved. I was going to plan the wedding of my dreams, not for a client, but for myself. Planning my own wedding was different from planning others. Every choice felt more meaningful. I selected a venue on the waterfront with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Puget Sound. I designed centerpieces with white roses and eucalyptus. I chose a dress that made me feel like a princess, layers of silk and lace that flowed when I walked. Sophie helped with everything. She negotiated with vendors, managed the timeline, and handled details I was too emotionally invested to think clearly about. "You deserve to enjoy this," she told me with a warm smile. "Let me take care of the stressful parts. You just focus on being the bride." Daniel was involved too, more than most grooms. He had opinions about the music, the food, and the seating arrangements. "I want this to be perfect for us," he said. I loved that he cared so much. I loved that he was invested in our special day. The wedding was set for 3 months away. 3 months until I became Mrs. Daniel Ross. 3 months until my fairy tale came true. Or so I thought. The discovery that changed everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon, exactly 2 months before the wedding. I had left my phone at the office and drove back to get it. The office was supposed to be empty, Sophie had a vendor meeting across town, and our assistants had gone home for the day. But when I unlocked the door, I heard voices. Laughter, coming from Sophie's office in the back. I should have announced myself. I should have called out. But something in my gut told me to be quiet, to listen. I walked slowly down the hallway, my heels silent on the carpet. The door to Sophie's office was slightly open, and through that gap, I saw them, Daniel and Sophie, on her desk, his hands in her hair, her legs wrapped around him, kissing with a passion I hadn't seen from Daniel in months. My whole body went cold. My vision blurred at the edges. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't move. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. But it was. They broke apart, and I heard Sophie laugh. That light, carefree laugh I'd heard 100 times before. "We have to be more careful," she said. "Emma almost caught us last week when she came home early." Last week. This had been going on for a while then. How long? Weeks? Months? Daniel's response made my blood freeze. "I know. Just 2 more months, and then we won't have to hide anymore. Once I'm married to Emma, we'll have access to everything. Her business accounts, her savings, all of it. Then we can disappear together, just like we planned." Sophie giggled. "You're terrible, but brilliant." "She has no idea, does she?" "None at all," Daniel said. "She's so trusting, so naive. It's almost too easy." I backed away slowly, my hand over my mouth to stop any sound from escaping. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might explode. I made it out of the office, out to my car, and I sat there in the parking lot as the truth crashed over me like a wave. The man I loved was using me. He was planning to marry me just to steal from me. And my business partner, my friend, was helping him do it. The confrontation. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't face Daniel. Instead, I drove to my best friend Rachel's apartment. Rachel had known me since college, had been there through every heartbreak and triumph. When she opened the door and saw my face, she knew immediately something was catastrophically wrong. "What happened?" she asked, pulling me inside. I told her everything. The words poured out between sobs. What I'd seen, what I'd heard, the betrayal that cut deeper than any physical pain could. Rachel held me while I cried, brought me tissues, made me tea I couldn't drink. "You have to confront them," Rachel said firmly. "You have to call off the wedding and kick Sophie out of the business." But as I sat there, as the shock began to wear off, something else grew inside me. Not just sadness, not just heartbreak, anger, cold, calculated anger. "No," I said slowly. "I have a better idea." Rachel looked at me with concern. "Emma, what are you thinking? They want to use me? They want to steal from me and then disappear." I wiped my tears and felt my spine straighten. "I'm going to let them think they're getting away with it. And then I'm going to destroy them both. Emma, they've been planning this for who knows how long." I continued, my voice growing stronger. "They think I'm naive. They think I'm stupid. But I built a successful business from nothing. I'm smarter than they give me credit for. And I'm going to prove it." Over the next hour, Rachel and I talked through the basics of a plan. I would need evidence. I would need help. I would need to be the best actress of my life, pretending everything was fine while secretly preparing my revenge. "Are you sure about this?" Rachel asked. "Revenge is complicated. It might hurt you more than it hurts them." I thought about Daniel's words. "She's so trusting, so naive. It's almost too easy." I thought about Sophie's laugh. I thought about all the lies, all the betrayal, all the planning they'd done to ruin my life. "I'm sure," I said. "They deserve exactly what's coming to them." The performance begins. The next morning, I went home. Daniel was making coffee in our kitchen, humming to himself, completely unaware that I knew everything. When he saw me, he smiled that charming smile I used to love. "Hey, babe, where were you?" I was worried. I forced myself to smile back. "I stayed at Rachel's. We had wine and got caught up talking about wedding stuff. I should have texted." "Sorry." He kissed my forehead, and it took everything in me not to pull away. "No problem. I'm just glad you're okay. Coffee, please." We sat at the breakfast table together, and he talked about his day ahead, a client meeting, some design work he needed to finish. I nodded and smiled and pretended to care. Inside, I was screaming. At the office, Sophie greeted me with her usual warm hug. "Morning, Emma. Ready for another busy day?" "Always," I said brightly. "Hey, I was thinking, we should go over the vendor contracts for my wedding. Make sure everything's locked in." "Great idea," Sophie said. "I'll pull all the files this afternoon." "Perfect." I needed to see what she'd been doing with my wedding vendors. Had she been skimming money? Changing contracts? I needed to know the full scope of their plan. As the day went on, I played my role perfectly. I laughed at Sophie's jokes. I texted Daniel sweet messages. I acted like the naive, trusting Emma they thought I was. But behind the scenes, I started gathering evidence. I made copies of our business financial records. I installed monitoring software on my office computer. I started documenting every suspicious conversation, every lie, every moment that revealed their true intentions. I also did something else. I called a lawyer, a new ally. The law firm of Harrison and Associates was recommended by Rachel's cousin, who'd used them for a complicated divorce. When I explained my situation to the receptionist, she immediately connected me with Marcus Harrison, the senior partner. Marcus's office was sophisticated and calm, with dark wood furniture and walls lined with law books. The man himself was in his late 30s, with sharp blue eyes, dark hair touched with gray at the temples, and a presence that commanded attention. "Miss Carter," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "Please sit down. Tell me what's brought you here." I told him everything. About Daniel, about Sophie, about their plan to steal from me. Marcus listened without interrupting, taking notes occasionally, his expression growing more serious as my story unfolded. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. "Miss Carter, Emma, I'm very sorry this is happening to you. What your fiancé and business partner are planning is fraud, potentially theft, and conspiracy. These are serious crimes." "I know," I said. "That's why I'm here. I want to make sure they face consequences. Real consequences." Marcus studied me for a long moment. "Most people in your situation would want immediate action. Cancel the wedding, fire the business partner, press charges right away. But you're not doing that." "Why?" "Because I want them to pay for everything," I said quietly. "I want to expose them publicly. I want everyone who knows them to see what they really are. And I want to make sure they can't do this to anyone else ever again." A small smile crossed Marcus's face. "Then you've come to the right place. I can help you build a case. We'll need solid evidence, financial records, recordings if possible, documentation of their plans. And we'll need to be strategic about timing." "The wedding is in 2 months," I said. "Then we have 2 months to prepare," Marcus replied. "Emma, I have to warn you. This is going to be difficult. You'll have to maintain the facade while gathering evidence. You'll have to act like everything is fine while your heart is breaking. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about Daniel's kiss that morning, Sophie's warm hug, the lies they told so easily. "I am," I said. "I'm absolutely prepared." Marcus nodded. "Then let's get started. First, I need you to bring me every financial document related to your business and your personal accounts with Daniel. Every contract Sophie has handled. Everything." As I left Marcus's office that day, I felt something I hadn't felt since discovering the truth. Hope. Not for my relationship with Daniel. That was dead and buried. Not for my friendship with Sophie. That had never been real. But hope for justice. Hope that I could turn this nightmare into something meaningful. The game begins. Over the next few days, I became 2 people. There was the Emma that Daniel and Sophie saw, happy, excited about the wedding, trusting, and naive. And there was the real Emma, the one who was carefully building a case against them, documenting their every move, preparing for the moment when I would reveal everything. I discovered Daniel had been skimming money from our joint business account for 6 months. Small amounts at first, then larger sums. He'd been careful, but not careful enough. With Marcus's help, I documented every unauthorized withdrawal. I found out Sophie had been giving our vendors kickbacks in exchange for inflated invoices, pocketing the difference. She'd been stealing from our clients too, charging them extra fees that never appeared on official receipts. And I learned their plan extended beyond just the wedding. They'd been researching how to access my personal savings, my retirement accounts, everything. They'd even looked into life insurance policies with me as the insured. That discovery made me physically ill, but I kept playing the game. I went to dress fittings and smiled at my reflection. I tasted wedding cakes with Daniel and pretended to debate between vanilla and chocolate. I met with Sophie to finalize details and thanked her for being such a wonderful friend and partner. Every smile was a lie. Every laugh was an act. Every moment was preparation for the revenge that was coming. The wedding was 7 weeks away. 7 weeks until Daniel thought he would win. 7 weeks until Sophie thought she would get away with everything. They had no idea what I had planned. They had no idea who they were really dealing with. Emma Carter wasn't naive. Emma Carter wasn't trusting. Emma Carter was about to show them exactly what happened when you underestimated her. The game had begun, and I was going to win. The calculated moves. Welcome back to Twisted Heartstrings. If you missed part 1, go watch it now. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever had to pretend everything was okay when your world was falling apart? Living the double life. 6 weeks before the wedding, and I had become an expert at deception. Every morning, I woke up next to Daniel and kissed him goodbye. Every day, I worked alongside Sophie, planning weddings and smiling for clients. Every evening, I discussed flower arrangements and guest lists as if my heart wasn't shattered into a million pieces. But the nights were different. After Daniel fell asleep, I would slip out of bed and work on my laptop in the spare bedroom. I documented everything. I created spreadsheets tracking every stolen dollar. I saved screenshots of suspicious messages. I built a case that would destroy them both. Marcus Harrison had become my secret weapon. We met twice a week at his office, always during times when Daniel thought I was meeting with vendors or visiting potential wedding venues. Marcus was methodical and brilliant. He helped me see patterns I'd missed, connections I hadn't made. "Look at this," Marcus said during one of our meetings, spreading financial documents across his desk. "Sophie hasn't just been stealing from your business. She's been running this same scheme for years. I found records from her previous job. They fired her quietly to avoid a scandal, but the pattern is identical." I stared at the papers, my anger growing colder. "She's done this before?" "Multiple times," Marcus confirmed. "She finds successful businesses, gets hired, gains trust, and then bleeds them dry. She's a professional con artist." Daniel probably thought he was using her, but I think she spotted him as an easy mark too. "They deserve each other," I said bitterly. Marcus looked at me with something like admiration in his blue eyes. "You're handling this remarkably well, Emma. Most people would have fallen apart by now." "I'm falling apart on the inside," I admitted. "But I can't let them see it. Not until I'm ready." He nodded slowly. 5 more weeks. "Can you hold on that long?" "I don't have a choice." The cracks began to show. As the wedding approached, Daniel became more confident. Too confident. He started making mistakes. One night, I heard him on the phone in our home office. The door was closed, but I pressed my ear against it and listened. "Baby, I know it's hard," he was saying. "Just a few more weeks and we're free." "Yes, I promise. The ceremony will be quick, then we'll have access to everything. By this time next month, we'll be on a beach in Thailand, and Emma will be left with nothing." My hand clenched around the glass of water I was holding. I wanted to burst through that door and throw it in his face. But I stayed calm. I stayed quiet. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Sophie was getting sloppy too. I caught her transferring money to a personal account she thought I didn't know about. She'd been setting up her escape fund, preparing for the moment when she and Daniel would disappear together. But I was one step ahead of them. Marcus had helped me freeze certain accounts, secure my assets, and create legal protections they knew nothing about. When they tried to run, they would find every door locked, every escape route blocked. During a wedding planning session, Sophie made a comment that almost broke my careful facade. "You know, Emma," she said, flipping through fabric samples, "you're so lucky to have found Daniel. Not every woman gets a man who's willing to commit like that." I looked up at her. This woman I'd trusted, this woman who was sleeping with my fiancé. "What do you mean?" "Oh, just that some men are only interested in what they can get from a relationship. Money, status, whatever. But Daniel really loves you. I can tell." The audacity of it took my breath away. She was sitting there, lying to my face, while planning to steal everything from me. I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled. "I am lucky," I said sweetly. "And I'm lucky to have a friend like you too, Sophie. I don't know what I'd do without you." Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. That's what friends are for. An unexpected connection. My meetings with Marcus began to change. What started as pure business, reviewing evidence, planning strategy, gradually became something more. We started talking about other things. Our lives, our dreams, our disappointments. I was engaged once. Marcus told me one evening. We'd finished our work early, and somehow we'd ended up having dinner at a quiet restaurant near his office. 5 years ago. Called it off 3 weeks before the wedding. "What happened?" I asked, genuinely curious. "I found out she was cheating," he said simply. "Not for money. just for excitement. She said I was too boring, too focused on work. Maybe she was right. She was a fool, I said before I could stop myself. Marcus looked surprised, then smiled. A real smile that transformed his usually serious face. That's kind of you to say. I mean it, I insisted. You've been incredible through all of this. Patient, supportive, brilliant. Any woman would be lucky to have you. There was a moment of silence, charged with something I couldn't quite name. Then Marcus cleared his throat. Emma, I need to be honest with you. This has become more than just a case for me. I care about what happens to you. Not just professionally. My heart skipped a beat. Marcus, I know the timing is terrible, he continued quickly. You're dealing with a massive betrayal, planning a wedding that's really a revenge scheme, and the last thing you need is complications. But I wanted you to know. After this is over, when you've had time to heal, I'd like to take you to dinner. A real dinner. Not a business meeting. I should have said no. I should have told him it was too soon, too complicated. But looking at him, this good, honest man who'd helped me when I was at my lowest, I couldn't. I'd like that, I said softly. After this is over. The smile he gave me was worth everything. Gathering the final evidence. 4 weeks before the wedding, I implemented the riskiest part of my plan. I needed concrete proof of Daniel and Sophie's relationship, not just financial crimes. I needed evidence so clear that no one could deny what they'd done. With Marcus's help, I hired a private investigator named Janet Moore. Janet was a former police detective, sharp-eyed and discreet. I gave her photos of Daniel and Sophie, their schedules, and the address of a downtown apartment I discovered Daniel was renting under a fake name. Give me 1 week, Janet said confidently. I'll get you everything you need. She delivered in 5 days. The envelope she handed me was thick with photographs and detailed reports. Daniel and Sophie entering the apartment together, kissing on the balcony, shopping for furniture like a real couple. The timestamps showed they'd been there dozens of times over the past 6 months, always when I thought Daniel was working late or Sophie was meeting with vendors. There were also recordings. Janet had managed to place listening devices in the apartment. Legally, Marcus assured me, because Daniel had used my money to rent it. The conversations she captured were damning. I almost feel bad, Sophie's voice said on one recording. Emma's been so nice to me. Don't, Daniel replied. She's got more money than she needs. We're just taking what should have been mine anyway. I've put up with her for 5 years. I've earned this. What if she finds out before the wedding? She won't. Emma's too trusting. Too stupid. That's why this will work. I listened to that recording 3 times, making sure I'd heard correctly. Each time, the words cut deeper. But each time, my resolve grew stronger. Sophie's dark past. While building the case against Daniel, Marcus discovered something else about Sophie. Something that changed everything. Emma, you need to see this, Marcus said, his voice serious over the phone. Can you come to my office right now? I made an excuse to Sophie about a vendor emergency and drove straight there. Marcus had his computer screen already pulled up, showing police reports and court documents. Sophie Chin isn't her real name, Marcus said. She's Sophie Chong. She changed it legally 3 years ago, and there's a reason why. He showed me the documents. Sophie had been arrested for fraud in California. She'd worked for a small wedding planning company, stolen over $100,000 from clients, and disappeared before the trial. The charges were eventually dropped because the business owner died before she could testify, and there wasn't enough evidence without her. She's done this before, I breathed. Exactly this. Not just once, Marcus said grimly. I found 2 other similar situations in different states. She finds small businesses owned by women, gains their trust, steals their money, and moves on. You're just her latest target. And Daniel? I think Daniel is her accomplice now, but originally he was probably just a convenient way to get closer to you and your business. She's the mastermind here, Emma. Daniel is just greedy and stupid enough to go along with it. This information changed my strategy. Sophie wasn't just a friend who'd betrayed me. She was a career criminal, and that meant I needed to involve more than just civil lawyers. Marcus made some calls. By the end of the day, we had a meeting scheduled with the FBI's white-collar crime division. Sophie's pattern of fraud across state lines made it a federal case. The FBI gets involved. Special Agent Rebecca Torres was everything you'd expect from an FBI agent. Professional, intimidating, and extremely thorough. She listened to our presentation for 2 hours, reviewing every document, every recording, every piece of evidence Marcus and I had gathered. "This is impressive work," Agent Torres said finally. "You've essentially done our job for us. Ms. Chun, or Chong, has been on our radar, but we've never had enough evidence to make an arrest. You've given us exactly what we need." "What happens now?" I asked. "We need you to continue as you have been," Agent Torres said. "Don't let them know anything is wrong. We'll be conducting our own investigation in parallel, gathering additional evidence. When we have everything we need, we'll move in. The question is, when do you want that to happen?" I looked at Marcus, then back at Agent Torres. "The wedding day," I said firmly. "I want it to happen on the wedding day." Agent Torres raised an eyebrow. "That's unusually dramatic." "They've been planning to humiliate me," I said. "To use the happiest day of my life to steal everything I've worked for. I want everyone to see what they really are. I want their families, their friends, everyone who knows them to witness their arrest." "Emma," Marcus said gently, "are you sure? That will be traumatic for you too." "I'm sure," I said. "They deserve a public reckoning. And I deserve to see it happen." Agent Torres considered this, then nodded slowly. "We can work with that. It's 3 weeks away. That gives us time to build an airtight case. But Ms. Carter, I need you to understand. Once this starts, there's no going back. Your fiancé and your business partner will both face serious federal charges. They could go to prison for years." "Good," I said coldly. "That's exactly what they deserve." The breaking point. 2 weeks before the wedding, I almost lost control. Daniel and I were having dinner with his parents, discussing final wedding details. His mother was so excited, talking about how proud she was, how perfect we were together. "You've made Daniel so happy, Emma," she said, squeezing my hand. "I've never seen him like this. You're the best thing that ever happened to him." I wanted to tell her the truth. I wanted to scream that her son was a liar and a thief, that he was planning to destroy me. But I kept quiet. I smiled. I played my role. But when we got home, when Daniel kissed me goodnight and told me he loved me, something inside me snapped. I locked myself in the bathroom and cried for the first time since I discovered the truth. I cried for the relationship I'd thought I had, for the future I'd planned, for the person I used to be, the woman who believed in fairy tales and happy endings. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Are you okay? I know tonight was with his parents. Call me if you need to talk." I called him. It was midnight, but he answered on the first ring. "Emma, I don't know if I can do this," I whispered. 2 more weeks of pretending. 2 more weeks of lying next to him. I feel like I'm losing myself." "You're not losing yourself," Marcus said firmly. "You're becoming stronger. You're fighting for justice. And you're almost there. Just 2 more weeks, Emma. You can do this." "What if I can't? Then I'll be there to catch you when you fall," he said softly. "But you won't fall. You're the strongest person I've ever met." His words gave me strength. I wiped my tears, washed my face, and made a decision. I would survive these 2 weeks. I would see this through. And when it was over, I would rebuild my life into something even better than before. The final preparations. The last week before the wedding was chaos. Final dress fittings, rehearsal dinners, out-of-town guests arriving. Everyone was excited. Everyone thought they were attending a celebration of love. Only 4 people knew the truth. Me, Marcus, Agent Torres, and Janet, the private investigator. We had our plan in place. The FBI would be at the wedding venue, disguised as guests. The moment I gave the signal, right after the vows, they would move in. Sophie was more stressed than usual. "I can't believe it's finally happening," she said during our last planning meeting. "Your wedding. After all this work." "I couldn't have done it without you," I said, and I meant it. Without her betrayal, I never would have learned how strong I really was. Daniel was nervous too, though he tried to hide it. Cold feet. I asked him the night before the wedding, when we were supposed to sleep separately according to tradition. "Never," he said, kissing me. "I can't wait to marry you, Emma. To spend the rest of my life with you." The lies came so easily to him. I wondered if he'd ever really loved me, or if I'd been nothing but a mark from the beginning. That night, alone in a hotel room while Daniel stayed at our house, I had my final meeting with Marcus and Agent Torres. "Everything is in place," Agent Torres confirmed. "My team will be positioned throughout the venue. The moment you give the signal, we move." "What if something goes wrong?" I asked. "Nothing will go wrong," Marcus said. He took my hand, his touch warm and reassuring. We've planned for every possibility. Tomorrow, you're going to get the justice you deserve. Thank you, I said to both of them. For everything. For believing me. For helping me. Emma, Marcus said seriously. After tomorrow, you're going to need time to process everything. To heal. I want you to know I'll be here for you, whatever you need. No pressure. No expectations. Just support. I squeezed his hand. I know. And Marcus? I'm really looking forward to that dinner. When this is all over. He smiled. So am I. The wedding day arrives. I woke up on my wedding day to sunshine streaming through the hotel windows. For a moment, just a moment, I forgot everything. I thought it was really my wedding day, that I would marry Daniel, and we'd live happily ever after. Then reality crashed back in. This wasn't a wedding. This was a reckoning. My bridesmaids arrived, Rachel and two other close friends who knew nothing about the truth. They helped me into my dress, did my hair and makeup, popped champagne. They were so happy for me. Rachel pulled me aside while the others were distracted. Are you ready? She whispered. She was the only bridesmaid who knew what was really going to happen. I'm ready, I said. The venue looked perfect. Sophie had done excellent work, I had to admit. White flowers everywhere, elegant table settings, the beautiful view of Puget Sound sparkling in the afternoon sun. It looked like a dream wedding. 200 guests filled the chairs. Daniel's family, my family, friends and colleagues. And scattered among them, FBI agents pretending to be guests, waiting for my signal. Daniel stood at the altar looking handsome in his tuxedo. When he saw me start down the aisle, his face lit up with what looked like genuine joy. But I knew better. He was celebrating his victory, thinking about all the money he was about to steal. Sophie sat in the front row, dabbing at her eyes like she was emotional, playing the role of the supportive best friend to the end. As I walked down that aisle, my arm through my father's, I felt calm, strong, ready. This was it. The moment I'd been planning for 8 weeks. The moment when everything would change forever. I reached the altar. Daniel took my hand. The officiant began speaking. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. I looked at Daniel, at Sophie, at all the people who had no idea what was about to happen. And I smiled. The reckoning and redemption. Welcome back to the finale of Twisted Heartstrings. If you haven't watched parts 1 and 2, go back now. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and drop a comment telling me. Would you have the courage to do what Emma did? The moment of truth. The officiant's voice filled the elegant waterfront venue as 200 guests watched what they thought was a beautiful wedding ceremony. Daniel stood beside me at the altar, holding my hands, his face the picture of a devoted groom. Behind me, my bridesmaids smiled. In the front row, Sophie dabbed fake tears from her eyes. Marriage is a sacred bond. The officiant continued, built on trust, honesty, and love. Trust, honesty, love. The words would have been funny if they weren't so tragic. If anyone has any reason why these two should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace. This was it. My moment. I looked at Daniel, at his green eyes that had once made my heart flutter. Now they just made me feel cold. I turned to face our guests. My father, sitting in the front row, looked confused. Rachel gave me an almost invisible nod. And scattered throughout the crowd, I saw Agent Torres and her team, ready to move. Actually, I said, my voice clear and steady, I have something to say. The officiant looked startled. Daniel's hand tightened on mine. Emma, what are you doing? He whispered urgently. I pulled my hand away from his. I'm telling the truth, Daniel. Something you've never done. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Daniel's face went pale. In the front row, Sophie sat frozen, her eyes wide. 8 weeks ago, I began, my voice projecting across the venue. I came back to my office to get my phone. I heard voices, and I discovered my fiancé and my business partner together. Kissing, planning, celebrating how easy it was to fool me. The murmur became gasps. Daniel reached for me. Emma, please, let me explain. Explain what? I cut him off. Explain how you plan to marry me just to steal my money? How you've already taken $52,000 from our joint accounts? How you rented an apartment downtown where you and Sophie have been playing house for 6 months? Daniel's mother cried out. His father stood up, face red with shock and anger. My own parents looked devastated. Sophie tried to stand, but Rachel, who'd been sitting strategically behind her, put a firm hand on her shoulder. I don't think so, Rachel said quietly. This is insane, Daniel said desperately, turning to the crowd. She's having some kind of breakdown. Emma, honey, you're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in 5 years, I said. I nodded to the officiant, who pulled out a folder I'd given him earlier. These are bank statements showing every unauthorized withdrawal Daniel made from my accounts. These are photos of Daniel and Sophie together at the apartment he rented with my stolen money. These are recordings of them discussing their plan. The officiant handed the folder to Daniel's father, who opened it with shaking hands. His face crumbled as he looked at the evidence. But that's not all, I continued. Sophie Chen isn't even her real name. It's Sophie Chong, and she's wanted by the FBI for fraud across multiple states. She's made a career out of targeting successful women, stealing from them, and disappearing.